Good morning, fellow troublemakers, or good evening, or good afternoon. Whatever time of day it is for you is fine. So, since I had been wanting to work on a particular project since, well, early spring, now that it was early fall, I thought it was time to finally get around to it. Now, to be fair to myself, I have actually been working on this since late spring. It just took this long for me to finish it and get the video out because this was one of my more epic and time-consuming projects. See, I decided that I wanted to follow in the footsteps of Studson Studios. If you've never watched his videos, you totally should. I'll link it down below. And make some miniature models out of, trash. Okay, I guess more appropriately, recycling. But, it's stuff I'm getting rid of. Let's put it like that. So I gathered up various plastic things, a soda bottle, some curves off of those little tomato containers, a couple plastic cookie container lids, and a bunch of cardboard from some cans of soda packages. And I sort of started puzzling together the vague outlines of an adorable little fairy house. Now, this was the first time I'd ever done anything like this, and in the end, there are certain things that I really love how they turned out, and there are certain things that I wish I had done differently. And I'll try and talk about those as we get to them. But right now, I'm working on something that I actually really enjoyed how it turned out. I made siding shingles out of cardboard and layered them on in rows, and it was just so cute. When I got to the empty spice container that I'd chosen to use as a chimney, I used little rectangles of cardboard to give it a brick texture up there. I made some interesting choices in this because I made the chimney and the sides of the house sort of in scale with the model. And then when I got to the roof, as you're going to see, I acted like it was made from natural, real world scale materials. So I'm not sure if I like the effect, as if the fairies made their own siding and bricks, but then gathered leaves for the roof, or if I think I did a terrible job. You should let me know what you think. Anyway, when I got to the roof, so this is one of the things that I wish that I had done differently. I did start the roof about halfway up, and I did that intentionally because I thought the roof was likely to be the more interesting part of the entire model. But that was when I was planning as opposed to when it actually worked out. In the end, it meant that it's very difficult to see the actual house details, like if you're just walking by on the street. So I wish I'd left the roof slightly higher so that people passing by could just see the windows and the door that are down below. But, oh hi, there's my dog in the background. That's the Callie dog. She's a great girl. Everyone say hi. This is another thing that I wish I'd done differently. When I did the roof, I just sort of put on vague leaf shapes, but I didn't really think concretely about what kind of leaves they were until later, and that really affected me in the painting. But anyway, when I was done with all the plastic and all of the cardboard, I did sculpt in a few things with air dry clay. One of those is the door and the lintel for the door, and the other is the frames that are in the window. I decided that in my imagination this was a trunk of a tree that a fairy had turned into a house by putting a roof on and then turning, say, the knot holes and things into doors and windows. So when I texturize it, and then later when I paint it, that's sort of the reasoning behind the way that I sculpted and painted it. I also used air dry clay to create little mushrooms growing on the roof of the house. I was really pleased with the mushrooms. I like them. The entire project was actually inspired by a log in my backyard that had these kind of tiered mushrooms growing up the side. And I thought it was so cute, and I thought it'd be a great place for a fairy house. But then I ended up deciding to put it in my front yard because obviously, duh, I want people to see it. But I had to get the mushrooms in there because they were such a huge part of the inspiration. So I sculpted them on, and I put a tight cluster of 3 on one side and then a more spread out cluster on the other because I really wanted it to look sort of natural and organic. When the trash assembly was all done, then it was time to pull out some primer paint that will stick to plastic and other things as well, and give everything a nice good base coat to seal it in. My guru Studson has a technique that he uses that makes things look more realistically textured, where he takes plaster and waters it down and then stipples that goop all over the place. I wanted to do something similar because my surfaces were really smooth, and it was making things look a little bit artificial, but I really wanted to use stuff that I already had, so I went online and looked up a homemade recipe for this stuff, and it turns out you could just use baby powder with white paint and some glue, and I had all those things, so I created my own homemade goop, and then I got to stippling. While I was working on the roof, I realized that the combination of the goop plus the leftover paper napkins that I'd used to stipple with would make some amazing moss mounds. I tried to get a little bit of texture that I could paint later as moss with hot glue, but it wasn't really standing out the way that I'd wanted it to, and the paper towels and the goop seemed like a better choice. And I have to say, I'm really pleased with the way that ended up. Then it was time to get to painting, and I think this is where you can really see the horror of both what I did with the roof, in that it blocks essentially the entire view of the house, and also how terrible my filming setup is. I keep trying, y'all. I really want to make sure you can see what I'm doing, and at the same time, I do not have all of the really cool filming apparatus that some other people have. I basically just have a tripod, so I tried to set it up at an angle, and I tried to be mindful and keep it tilted towards the camera while the place that I was working on. But yeah, sorry. It's just the painting is not that great. In terms of angle and the ability to view. The other fantastic thing that I did was I got a certain amount of painting done, and then I turned the camera off because I thought I was done for the evening. But if you've ever gotten involved in an art project, you know that sometimes you're like, oh, I'm done, and you walk away, but then you come back and you keep fiddling with it. And if you keep fiddling with it, but you've forgotten to turn the camera back on, then yeah, you're not gonna get film of a whole bunch of the painting that you did for this project. So, yeah, sorry about that. Oh, it's magic! Someone has come along and painted it in the night. It wasn't the fairies, it was me. I mean, like, I literally just admitted that to you. Anyway, I had a huge issue with painting the roof because all of my tones of green, which I was trying to keep relatively realistic, were blending together, and it was really frustrating. And then I remembered that there are a couple breeds of hosta, species of hosta? I guess if they're plants, they're species. Anyway, there are a couple species of hosta that have sort of a red rim on them and then a really vibrant green center. And I decided to try and mimic that for the leaves of the roof, and I'm actually really pleased with how that ended up. Then, as a little finishing touch, when all was said and done, I went and put a little bit of patterned fabric into the windows, like the fairies hung curtains. And you basically can't see it unless you get down on your hands and knees and look. But I don't care, because I know it's there, and it really makes me happy, and that's what's important. All in all, I'm actually pretty pleased with how this came out. I feel like the leaves in particular I could have done a much better job with, particularly if I'd had a plan in advance. And I could have scaled them better just so that they fit in with everything else. But I love the siding, I love the windows and the door frame, and I love the moss and the mushrooms growing on the roof. So all told, like, it's cute and I like it. And now that it was all done, the only thing that was left was to put it in its new home. But first, here's a couple indoor beauty shots, just so you can really see what it looks like. Movie magic makes this seem almost instantaneous, but honestly, it was really fast to dig a hole and settle the fairy house in its brand new home. And here it is. It's super cute, and I'm really pleased with it. I have no idea how well it's going to hold up to the weather, but honestly, I kind of don't care if it starts growing real moss or real mushrooms. It looks like it belongs there, and next spring when the wildflowers bloom, it's gonna be so great there among the blossoms. Oh crap, I forgot the evil trifecta. Real quick, like if you like my dog, comment on what type of creature you think lives in this house, and subscribe if you believe in fairies. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day. Bye!